Oh boy, do I have a special video for you guys, because this truck, yes, it's tall, it's big, it's a heavy-duty Ford diesel F-550, or maybe it's something else, but it's hiding a couple of really interesting surprises underneath, including the wheels, the tires, the suspension, and some other pieces. And I have owner here, Justin. Justin, thanks for coming by.
Howdy from Texas. Thanks for having me in Colorado.
Thank you for coming down with your rig. So I want to learn everything about the truck, right? What you've done to it.
All factory.
Not quite, right?
Not quite.
Hey everyone, Case here with a special announcement for all you young guys like me out there. Did you know 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're only 35? And did you know the best way to treat it is to get ahead of it while you still have hair left? You used to have to go to a doctor to get a prescription, but now thanks to Keeps, you can visit a doctor online and get medication sent straight to your home. Keeps offers the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there to save your hair, and one you've never seen for this price. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/TFLtruck or click the link in the description below. That's keeps.com/TFLtruck. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save.
This used to be a dually, right?
Correct. Used to be a dually. All of the 450s and 550s come from the factory with dual tires. Coincidentally, it's a 19.5 inch dual tire, which doesn't do very well off-road. 110 PSI on the tires. You can't air them down below 70 PSI safely. So to take an F450 or 550 off-road effectively, it is difficult to do with the original duals. Super singling duals to singles is not a new concept. It's been done for quite some time, but we've brought a new wheel to market that we believe is the new benchmark, and just want to share with you the features, why we designed it the way we did, some of the things that we encountered with other sets of wheels that we've ran that have caused us to have a need to create a wheel. We're not a wheel company, we're not a truck shop. I just birthed this idea out of a need for my own trucks, and thankfully other people have seen the same benefits and have asked for them, so we've now brought them into production.
Okay, so you're using this truck kind of at your property, right?
Yes,
at your ranch?
Just a ranch truck.
Yeah.
The F-550 chassis is really kind of their mainstay of the preferred chassis that they use for these builds, but again, all of those chassis begin with dual tires.
Right.
And the super singles that have been offered previously give it the same stance as this truck. They use the same tire, the 335 80R20, which that tire is not a preferred choice because it's so large. That's a preferred choice because of the load capacity. They're 6,770 pounds per tire. So one of these tires can replace the dual 19.5s that came from the factory. So you give up no load capacity by going with this tire. So when you see this tire on, Skeeter brush trucks or Earth Roamer Overlanders, they really didn't set out to find the biggest tire they could fit on the truck. They were focusing on the needed load capacity.
Tell me about where it started, like what year, what chassis was this?
Okay, I had 3 4-door, 8-foot bed, 1-ton trucks that I got rid of when I ordered this one. It's a 2019. It's actually an F450. It's not an F550, even though the badge says 550. There's a bit of a devil story behind why it's badged as a 550.
Okay.
But got rid of the 3 4-door, 8-foot bed trucks that were terrible to park in tight spaces because I wanted to go with the 450 that has the wide track front axle.
Okay.
They turn 7 degrees sharper each way than does the F250 and the F350. I wanted the single cabs just to keep the wheelbase short, so that this is like a Prius disguised as a medium-duty truck.
Okay.
It drives very nicely in tight situations.
So it's the footprint of it.
The footprint, backing of the trailers, the sharper turning radius, all was benefited by a single cab truck with the wide track front axle. But I went with the pickup bed truck for 2 reasons. One, they don't detune the engine on the pickup bed 450s as they do the chassis cab 450s, chassis cab 550s.
Right.
And the frame is not the standard 34-inch wide C-channel frame you find
For
on
like
chassis cabs.
upfitters
right.
and stuff. Yeah.
This frame is more akin to the F-250 and F-350 pickup truck. It's boxed, it's contoured, so you could get a lift kit for this frame from Kelderman, where the chassis cab trucks could only get a stock height air ride rear suspension.
Okay.
I knew for sure I wanted air ride on the rear, but I wanted the additional height, so the 450 pickup bed truck gave me that ability.
Was just the key, and also kept the wheelbase a little bit shorter
Yes.
and nicer for you, right?
Heavy towing capacity, all the way around. It was exactly what I wanted, except for the ride and the off-road ability. So
Right.
when you have a 142-inch wheelbase and very high PSI tires that are made for commercial use, you can imagine how terrible the ride was from factory.
So this is the diesel, like you said, 6.7 liter.
6.7, yes.
2019. Okay, and a 6-speed automatic.
Correct. They went to 10-speed in 20,
Yeah.
but I ordered this for the 19 year.
Cool. All right. So now let's go in the front axle, because you've done obviously a lift.
Well, it's a standard wide track Dana axle for the front.
Okay.
430 gears are the only gear ratio you can get with the factory pickup bed F-450. So driving freeway speeds, your RPMs were very high.
Mm-hmm.
The larger tire, the 41-inch tire with these 430 gears being the only option, now gives me 1,700 RPM at 70 miles per hour, which is a very nice, comfortable cruising speed.
Yeah.
I went with a non-air lift on the front. We went with a FabTech spring on the front with radius arms, and then went with the Kelderman 6-inch airlift in the back. So wanted to dedicate air to the rear, spring to the front for simplicity. Air is much more comfortable, of course, but it's also a more complicated system. So I wanted to keep the front radius arm coil springs for simplicity and durability, and then go Kelderman 4-link in the rear for the air ride. And the 4-link prevents any axle wrap potential under heavy loads and heavy acceleration.
Can you also level out the rear then?
You can. There's leveling valves here, and it's automatic. There's no electronics. It's a manual valve that it raises or lowers when you change the weight on the truck by loading on the bed or hooking onto a trailer. As this arm changes position, it adds or removes air. So it's an automated system. You can dump the rear air suspension and squat down to get under a trailer and then air up, so you're not having to crank the legs up and down on the trailer.
Gotcha. And then, of course, you put this flatbed on it.
Yep. Bradford built flatbed with some tweaks. We wanted to have a side opening toolbox because climbing in the back of the truck with muddy boots, of course, is not safe or favorable. So this pulls out 60% to the left, 60% to the right, so you get full access to the drawer standing on the ground.
Was this something custom you've done, or they can do it also?
No, Bradford built did not make the box. Happy Jack made a quick draw box, and that's where the design came from, but they're no longer in production of that box because of COVID. They streamlined their manufacturing. So we made these boxes off of the model of Happy Jack had the side opening because I couldn't find a quick draw to purchase anywhere.
Okay.
The fold down sides sure help to keep things on the flatbed that are not tied down, chainsaws, gas cans on the ranch. This is a Bradford design, but we added the rear bar, which Bradford did not add, to capture things from sliding off of the rear, and made a cutout for a gooseneck hitch so we could hook onto the trailer without hooking this bar and tearing it off.
Okay, I gotcha. All right, so let's zoom in onto the wheel, because that was your design. Because how did the story come about?
Well, there are several super singles that we can buy.
Okay.
Some are steel one piece, some are aluminum multi-piece where there's shells of the wheel are bolted together. There's even hybrids that will have a steel center plate and an aluminum shell, and we own many of them. I bought many of them, but for one reason or another, each one was a bit of a shortcoming for my use. So I just set out one day to design for me the benchmark wheel for my own trucks. I wanted to have lips on the edge of the wheel for the hammer-on style lead weights. The adhesive sticky weights that are placed on the wheel. Of course, they're not very attractive, but when they pressure wash the mud away, generally the weights go away and they leave that tacky debris behind. But the clip-on weights, I wanted that as an option.
Okay.
I wanted aluminum. Most importantly, I wanted a one-piece shell. I didn't want any bolt-together function, because tire shops, most discount tire, others, won't service the multi-piece wheels. So once you consume a set of tires, you're in the shop for half a day with a torque wrench, changing all of the fasteners out, to break the wheel apart, to put new rubber on, to put everything back together, assemble it, torque it. It's just terribly labor intensive.
And expensive.
Yeah. When it's just really not needed for most of what we do. In combat, I understand the need for run flats. If a tire gets shot and you need to get out of harm's way and move that vehicle out of harm's way under its own power, you need a run flat. We've ran these trucks aired down to 15 PSI with this one-piece wheel in the mud. Never had a bead unseat, never had a wheel spin on a tire. No anomalies that people academically say will happen, but haven't really proven that. And we have. We've ran the multi-piece wheels to the point that we feel the added weight of 92 pounds with the run flat and the multi-piece compared to a 59-pound wheel made it not drive as nicely on the road, much more difficult to balance. We wanted a forged design, wanted to be made in the USA. That was important. So knowing that no one knew who I am, I wanted to have this wheel have street credit from the get-go. So I approached Hutchinson, took the features and designs of the wheel to them, and told them I would like for them to certify it and produce it for us, and they did. There's other features that must be noted. That there's a valve stem on both sides of the wheel. In the front, you have a valve stem on the shallow side. Well, the front wheel and the rear wheel are the same on a dually truck that's been singled, but you have a different axle width front to rear. So to get the front and rear tires to track properly, you have to flip the wheel around backwards to put it on the rear axle than you do for the front axle. Mm-hmm. So the valve stem is normally on the shallow side on other manufacturers' super singles, but then when you put it on the rear, you had to get under the truck to check the tire pressure or change the tire pressure.
Okay, and in this case, what's the tire here?
Tire is a Continental. MPT 81 is this design, but what you need to note is the MPT designation.
It's down there.
Yes, if you go buy a Nitto or a Toyo or a BF Goodrich, anything from Discount Tire or the other tire suppliers, that's generally going to be an LT or light truck tire. And they limit 3,970 pounds a piece, 4,000 pounds tops for a capacity on an LT tire. But the beads are different. So we knew this going in, that some people wouldn't need the full capacity of the truck, and they would much prefer a 35-inch or 37-inch or 38-inch tire compared to these large 41s. And they could get away with running the smaller tire because they didn't need the 8,000 pound or greater capacity on the axle. So we have wheels made with the LT bead. We have other wheels part numbers made with the MPT bead. And that's very important, and not many people discuss that. The LT will mount on an MPT wheel, and it will hold air, but it's not an engineered solution. You need to match the bead of the rubber to the bead of the aluminum.
Yeah.
So that's engineered. That's a proper solution. So we just decided to offer both. We offer an LT bead and an MPT bead. The wheel is load rated for 8,275 pounds. This rubber is rated for 6,770. The LT tires, the heaviest rating is 4,000 pounds. So our wheel is literally double the capacity of the LT tire. But we wanted to not have the wheel ever be our limiting factor.
My next question, I guess, if people are interested, how can people get these now, or do they talk to you?
Yes, I'm the sole source. Hutchinson and I have an agreement. I wanted Hutchinson's name on these wheels, but being that they were my design, I wanted exclusive rights to the wheel. So NASA_wheels plural is our Instagram page. You can see the wheels there. My cell number 979-997-3112. I'm always happy to talk about your build, your configuration, to let you know what will work for you. Or you can email me. My last name, Wehring, WEHRING @yahoo.com. I'm very personable. All of my sales so far have been from direct marketing. You don't get turned over to a website or a secretary. I'm passionate about these wheels, and I want to talk to you about these wheels. So if you have an interest or you have an application that you're just not sure will work, call me, we'll talk about it.
And finally, what about the price range for some of these wheels?
$1,500 a piece across the board.
Okay.
We're not the cheapest option, but we're certainly the most thought out option. I never have any mud to smear or bad things to say about anyone else's product. I prefer to push ours on merit. I wanted forged, I wanted made in the USA. And those two features doubled my price point. But I didn't want to build a compromise wheel. I wanted the best wheel I could design.
You mentioned rigs like earthwormers,
Yes.
right? They're already $500,000, $1 million rigs. So spending $1,500 on a properly designed wheel, I think makes sense.
Well, all of your
In my
traction
opinion.
control, all of your suspension modifications on this $750,000 truck boils down to 4 tires on 4 wheels touching the ground. For all of those other systems to operate properly, this has to do its job first. So a no compromise wheel really has been well received so far by the market.
And also you have, or you can add the Centromatic balancer to it, right?
Yes, you got a 127 pound tire, so that's of course a challenge. How do you balance a 127 pound tire and a 59 pound wheel? We did make the grooves on the wheel for the hammer-on lead weights, but that's a static weight. Many people run a dynamic balancer, which has media inside this plate that distributes itself to self-balance at different speeds as the rubber wears on the tire. All of these different variables actually changes the balance on a tire-wheel combination. So this is the normal F-550 plate that Centromatic, a Texas company, manufactures. It's a top hat design, and it's very tall to clear the factory dually wheels.
Okay.
But when you put it on the back of the super single, because it's so tall, that this ring is actually very exposed to rocks, to roots, to trail rash. So I went and spoke to Centromatic. I drove the truck there. I took some of our wheels, and they made for me a low profile, heavier gauge material balance plate that stays within the profile of the back of our wheel, the shallow side.
Justin, I want to ask you 3 more things at least.
Okay.
First of all, the fenders, let's start there. What are these?
They're a fiberglass fender made by McNeil Racing. When you change the dually tires out with the super singles, you lose that dish-in effect of the wheel, and the tire gets pushed out considerably. So you have to cover that tire, or you have mud on your windshield and you're unable to drive off-road. So McNeil Racing makes a complete fiberglass replacement fender. They're designed as a consumable, so no fault to McNeil. They make a good product for how it was designed.
Yeah.
But when we put them on the trucks for permanent application, the body lines just weren't quite right, and it looked like a consumable. So we had to break all of the tabs, reglass the fender, fit it, and then paint it. And then we had to add under here, there's a closeout panel. The factory wheel well stops well before the fiberglass fender starts. So we made an aluminum closeout panel to prevent a gap. That way mud and debris couldn't be, pocketed in the cavity there. So McNeil Racing out of California makes the fender, but we made the closeout panel. We refitted it and then painted everything to match the truck.
Okay, 2 more questions. So you've driven, so this truck is what, 3 years old?
It's a 2019. I got it February 14th, Valentine's Day of 19.
So almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years, and
Okay.
we will turn 100,000 miles on this trip
So you've been using it pretty heavily.
every day.
And so after you've done the modification, the lift and the tires, what is your fuel efficiency like on this one?
Stock with the 19.5s and the factory pickup bed, this truck got 13.2, 13.3 empty. The only gear ratio you could get in the truck with the factory pickup bed and the 450 is a 430 ratio. So that's terribly high RPMs for highway running. With the taller tires, and this is the only vehicle I've ever lifted that improve the fuel mileage. It now gets 14.3 to 15.2 empty depending on how I'm driving, but I'm running at 1700 RPM at 70 miles per hour, which is in a sweet spot for this engine. When in stock form, I really had to need the truck to want to drive it because it was just terribly uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, but
And-
because if you're unloaded especially, it just rides really rough.
Yeah, but now with the larger sidewall, which is allowed to flex, with the single instead of the dual tire, with a wheel that's nice and round because it's forged and machined, balances well, it's lightweight compared to others. It's a streetable truck. It's a joy to drive as a daily driver that can also hook onto a large gooseneck and drag heavy equipment around.
All right, very, very cool. Well, thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get a little bit of time behind the wheel and get to feel it for myself.